Welcome to a special episode of Field of Geeks. We're interviewing ALEX DAWE. I'm Jonah.
I'm Bill.
I'm Josh.
I'm Alex. Glad to be back.
Alex, welcome back.
Thank you.
This is fantastic. Josh, I like your awkward pause this time. Usually it's Bill or I with the awkward pause.
You're in the captain's seat. So.
Is it weird you sitting over there and me over here?
It's a little, it's tight. I feel you guys' pain now. So,
well, welcome back, Alex. I know we were just chatting. It's been how many years since you were on the show last?
I think it was like 5 years or so. I think last time I was here like 2017 or 18 when we were first producing my first comic. So yeah,
excellent.
It's been a while, but I always wanted to come back, and I'm really happy to be back today.
Well, welcome back. So glad to have you. And we're talking about your new book, Toonman.
Yep.
Right? And it's the animated ace is sort of the
tagline. Yeah.
Tagline. Perfect. Okay. So for our listeners who might not be familiar with Toonman, which I'm assuming they're, more than likely probably not yet. Tell us a little bit about the concept.
Well, Toonman is the story of a failed 1930s cartoon character named Tomfoolery, who had a few pilots back in the golden age of animation, but they never picked up. So he's been kind of stuck in a limbo in this world of cartoons where they all are living and breathing characters after they're animated. And in modern times, he gets a chance to come to our world, the human world, to find purpose again. But instead, what he ends up becoming is a superhero. He uses his cartoon abilities to fulfill his purpose of bringing joy to others as a superhero. So I like to pitch it as Roger Rabbit meets Superman.
Yeah, that's excellent. I think the concept is very cool. In fact, I was thinking about it. If I was to throw a blurb on the front cover of your book, not that anyone cares what I necessarily have to say, but if I was to throw a blurb on it, what I found with this is we've got an original character that stands out in a crowd of like cookie cutter heroes, and I think that it was a very unique and fresh take on that superhero concept, and I really dug the inspiration that I believed you were drawing from, but I do want to hear a little bit more about sort of, aside from the concept, what was sort of the idea? Where did tomfoolery come from?
Well, growing up, my two biggest things were superheroes and comic books, Well, superheroes and cartoons, so to speak. That's basically how I spent my childhood, was either reading superhero comics like Batman or Spider-Man and watching cartoons like Looney Tunes or like Ben 10 or so, like a lot of came out in the 90s. And, I've always wanted to combine those two. And, it occurred to me one day, I noticed that there were superheroes who were like cartoons, like Deadpool or Plastic Man were like goofy, like out of their characters, but just weren't exactly like cartoons. And then there were cartoons about superheroes. Mm-hmm. But there was never a story about a cartoon character that was a superhero. Like a full-blown animated Bugs Bunny, Looney Tunes, Animaniacs acting as a superhero. You only have characters like The Mask or that one Marvel character, Slapstick. Yeah, which Marvel really only scratched the surface with him, in my opinion. I don't really think they did as much with him as they could have. Yeah. But I think that was more of a product of the 90s. If they were to try something like that with him today, it might be a little bit differently received. But I agree with you 100%. Yeah. So that's kind of how Toonman came to be. It's like, I saw this opportunity to combine the two things I loved, and I noticed there was a niche that wasn't out there that wasn't being filled, and I thought this could be something. So I rolled with that, and Toonman's been one of my more popular characters since then.
Yeah,
so
that's awesome. Yeah, I know, because that was one of my next questions, is sort of where the inspiration comes from. So I want to talk a little bit more about you in cartoons in the 90s, and I'm going to put you on the spot for just a second. Give me your ideal Saturday morning cartoon lineup. When you were sitting down with a bowl of cereal, what cartoons were you watching or did you want to see?
Okay, that's easy. So the first one would be like any of the Bruce Timm animated series. So Batman animated series or Superman animated series, those are my big ones, but also Justice League and Static Shock. And then there was also Yu-Gi-Oh! That was kind of like my anime a little bit more than Pokemon, which I still loved. And then there was like others like Dexter's Lab. And just a little after the 90s is the 2003 Ninja Turtles lineup. Yep. Mm-hmm. That's what I grew up. That was my Ninja Turtle fix. Of course, there's also classics like Animaniacs and Looney Tunes. So kind of a little mix of action and comedy there, which is what I kind of pulled my inspiration for Toonman from.
That's perfect. I'm going to ask you guys the same question.
I would say classic Ninja Turtles, of course. That's what kind of got me into superheroes and stuff like that to begin with. Batman the Animated Series, Darkwing Duck, X-Men, and probably Spider-Man as well.
Oh yeah. Josh.
He pretty much said everything.
And then Power Rangers. I got to throw Power Rangers, even though it's not
Power Rangers is
animated.
another,
Yeah.
I have to put-
not technically
Power Rangers
animation,
came
but
at, yeah.
But
Oh,
that
go
was
ahead,
that was
sorry.
a huge show for me growing up. That was one of my inspirations. I loved that Power Rangers growing up. It
Yeah.
was like my first introduction to superheroes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that show too. I was afraid to admit it because I think it was kind of like borderline like aging out of that realm, you know?
Yeah.
But, now that's what's great about being a geek. Like, you don't have to really apologize or hide anymore, I felt that way ever since like Iron Man 2008 or so.
Yeah, 2007-ish, give or take. Yeah.
But yeah, what Bill said, like all those cartoons were pretty much, definitely Batman the Animated Series. Like, it was a great time in the early 90s. I mean, that's my age range, so... But obviously it went on longer than that, too. But, I dig, like, Alex, the early 2000s Turtles are yours. Like, that's the beauty of it. Like, we all have our Turtles,
Like, every generation kind of has a Ninja Turtles,
and when they
which
did
is
that
great.
crossover...
Yeah.
And it brought everyone together. That was amazing.
Turtles is one of those I've really been afraid to go back and rewatch the old 90s cartoon just out of fear it probably is not held up as well
I think the animation got worse.
as I remember it being as a kid. And that was kind of that was the reason why I tried to go back and watch like Masters of the Universe, and I was like, this is not as good as I thought it was.
It's tarnishing.
And then there's other ones though where I'm a lot more forgiving of it.
Yeah.
Like, G.I. Joe, even the Deke G.I. Joe series from the 90s, which was like absolutely terrible animation and bad production quality. I'll still sit and watch that. The storylines are terrible, and I'll still watch that and have not like just shut my brain off and be like, it's G.I. Joe, it's okay.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But
I think there was that kind of golden age of Fox on Saturday mornings where they just you could like start at 7 o'clock in the morning and watch all the way to like 11 o'clock, and it'd be just nothing but great stuff.
Yeah. Alex, so let's get back to the book real quick. I know this is not your first foray into putting together and self-publishing a comic book, but tell me a little bit about how you put the creative team together for this one.
So for this one, it kind of like came down to first I had to design the characters, which I did a little bit of myself, and then when it came to picking up the artist for the book, I kind of went through a couple different options. I was going to go with a person named Rob from the UK, but he had scheduling conflicts. And then I met Terrence, who is the current artist of this book, who was the artist of the first issue. And he had this like this style that was just like, it was kind of like Kevin Eastman in a sense. It was like simple, but it stood out, and it had this kind of animated feel for Toonman that I loved. Mm-hmm. So I knew I needed to have him as my artist for the first issue, and it was really good. Like he was it was slow going at first because we both had busy schedules, but we were able to put out the book, and he's just been a great person. It's been love of Toonman ever since. The artist for the cover, David, I met him online probably within 6 months of making the comic. And, I just loved his style so much. And I just want to say out that the cover art is actually going to be interior art is going from issue 2 forward.
Okay.
Because he has like a more professional style that we need. But Terrence is still part of the team.
Mm-hmm.
And the letters one. He was the letters for another series we originally did before we dropped it, Xena, Master of the Mind. He was an artist for us. And he's just been this great guy who's been helping us with like a lot of other energy stuff like promotions and like graphic design work. So the team's really kind of fluctuated as the time's gone on, but I've just enjoyed working with all of them. They're great people, and the best part is like they love working on Toonman, because that's what I want from anyone who works on my comics more than anything. Because the last thing I want is for someone to be trapped in a book they don't like,
Right.
Because like you've heard stories of artists and writers who have to take a job as a comic just because they have to, but they don't really enjoy it, even though like it's a big character. No, I want my people for my comics to enjoy working on the comics more than anything.
Yeah, that makes sense. So how did you get hooked up then, or how did you meet the artist that you're working with? Was it just all online?
Yeah, it was all online through DeviantArt.
Okay,
that's kind of like my main website for NRG Comics. That's where I've met all of my artists going forward, and that's where I still try to find all my artists.
Excellent.
Sometimes I find ones from Twitter or recently Blue Sky or Instagram. But I've been on like DeviantArt since like I was in high school, and it's become like a home to me. That's like everyone has their own social media place where they feel at home. For me, that's DeviantArt. It's changed a lot, but that's still where I still look for artists for all my promos and my comics.
Yep, excellent.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. And so, I guess you alluded to the cover artist is going to be the interior artist going forward for the next few issues.
Yep.
I want to hear more about that. How many issues do you have planned? How many do you have written? How many do you have outlined? How many do you have planned? What's your vision for the future?
Well, honestly, I don't have an ending for Toonman. With all my comics, I don't like to plan endings unless they're like kind of like more lunch-side graphic novels. Because to me, the best thing about comic books was I grew up with the series where it just kept going and going and going, and I had all these different stories, and that's what I liked about them. My favorite series were like that. You had Invincible and Savage Dragon, which are still going strong to this day. So I don't really have an idea for an ending in mind. So it's Toonman is the comic I want to spend the rest of my life on. If I could choose one project to be, that would be my Savage Dragon or my Spawn or my Invincible, it would be Toonman.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Very cool.
In regards to the other questions, we're almost done with the second issue. I'm going to start working on the third issue. I just need to actually get my ass and do that.
Yeah.
Part of my language, because
You're
it's
good.
procrastination.
Yeah.
We're reading.
It's because of Bill we always get that explicit rating.
Yeah, thanks.
but I do have a lot of other stories planned.
Yeah.
Especially because I built a huge rogues gallery for Toonman and a huge supporting
That's
cast.
cool.
And-
That's awesome.
Yep, and because I want to explore more of the NRG universe through Toonman first and foremost.
Yep. So how far ahead do you work? Do you got the second issue you said almost done, and then the third issue, is it completely plotted and written? Is it outlined?
I have I guess you could say I have a bit of an outline. I
Okay.
don't actually write outlines, but I do have a basic idea. I'm what you know as kind of like a pantser writer. So I write by the seat of my pants. Well, usually when I have an idea.
Yeah, you do the whole Larry Hama with G.I. Joe, Real American Hero, where he writes issue to issue and doesn't really think too far ahead.
Exactly. I used to be a really big planner, but then I kind of had to grow out of that because plans kept changing, and whenever they did, I just felt turmoil for it because I'm a scheduler. I'm kind of OCD about that. It's when I schedule something, but then I realized with comics, I have all these new ideas coming in. It's better just to go by the seat of my pants so I can adapt to it better.
Yep. Now with your scripting, do you do a full script or do you do an outline that the writer then or the artist then works from? It sounds like you can do a bit of drawing yourself. Do you ever do any kind of Keith Giffen-esque breakouts?
Sometimes what I usually do is a full script, and so it has goes panel by panel and page by page, and I break down every scene. I try to be as detailed as I can, but also leave room for my artist to have fun with it and leave up for interpretation because I want them to add their bit of style. But I always try to make sense of the scene as much as I can. And I'm a little bit of an artist. I'm not a very good one, but I do a little bit of a character design, trying to figure out how I want the characters to look. And if I can't bring the concept to life, then I give my artist some visual aids as reference to kind of what I'm going for with a character.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the thing I find most intriguing about any comic book or any sort of series that starts from an idea on a napkin to a full-fledged project is seeing the concept art and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So is that kind of where you started with the character designs and stuff like that?
Yes, very much. So I guess you could say because I spend so much time building up Toonman's universe, I have a whole cast of rogues galleries and characters that I've kind of built up and we're still developing. So so we start with that first so we know what they look like, and then we kind of go from there to kind of build the story around them. Because, I feel like there are some characters you don't know are going to take off in the story, but there are some that you have plans for that you want to have designs set going forward. Because if these guys are going to be in the story later on, further issues, you need to have a set design for them.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. And so right now, are all the rogues galleries, these are all original characters?
Yep, very much.
Because of the concept, this cartoon concept, have you had any thought or any plans on bringing in any public domain existing characters? And if so, who would you love to see Toonman go up against or team up with?
Well, it's funny you mention that because, in the past, I was heavily influenced by the big two. And now I'm trying to very much move away from that. And I've actually taken a lot of influence from public domain. So one thing I'm actually doing, one of my planned heroes that Toonman's going to come up with is actually going to be Dracula.
Okay.
So I have this idea for,
That's cool.
Dracula. He's been immortal, and he's kind of trying to seek redemption for all his past that his Curse of Vampire has done for him. So it's this idea I had. I always wanted to take this famous literary villain or public domain villain who was wasn't very good in the beginning, but like his immortality has mellowed him out to a point where like he realizes what he's done is wrong and wants to make up for it. And originally I was going to do something like that with the character Zeus, because Zeus is like, he's always portrayed as a good guy, but never really as a real dick in the mythology of his. But I had a different idea for mythology, so how it works in my universe, so I decided to go with Dracula. But on the note, another character Toonman's going to team up with is Hades, like the Greek god Hades. Because I've always wanted to do, because Hades is one of my favorite Greek gods, and I've always loved him in all media, but I always hate how he's one of the most justable gods in the Greek mythology, like the more actually good ones, but he's always portrayed as a villain just because he's the god of the dead.
Right.
Yeah. So I wanted to do something different than that. I wanted to show Hades in a better light, showing that out of all these Greek mythology heroes and all the mythology gods in mythology, Hades is one of the few good ones.
Yeah.
We were lucky to have a preview of the first issue, and I really dug it. Like I could even see it as a cartoon, it was very well done, and I like that there's a hint at a bigger universe, because they do mention Empress, don't they, in the comic?
They do, yes.
I like that, because I'm like, oh yeah.
So we referenced that in there as kind of a side Easter egg. But yeah, we do have a lot of but there are going to be a lot of other superheroes in the Toonman universe that we're going to introduce through Toonman, and a lot of them are just our planned heroes that we have people are excited to see. One of I could just shout out there is called Slamazon, and it's like this 10-year-old girl who discovers the girdle of Hippolyta of the Amazons, which transforms her into this mighty Amazon, which she uses to become both a professional wrestler and a superhero.
Okay.
And that's that's going to be one of our more kid-friendly books, but it's like one of the ideas that people just love from our universe.
Excellent. Right on.
Very cool.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
I agree with you, Josh. Like the artwork, I love the artwork. I love the storytelling aspect of it. Not just Toonman, but some of the side characters that you set up as the gentleman who's drawing Toonman, or who's trying to sort of reinvent himself through Toonman.
Marty Mason.
Marty Mason. Yep. Thank you. I thought he was a very compelling character, and interested to see what happens with him, because I think a lot of us, whether we're an aspiring artist or we've tried something like that in the past, maybe hadn't found much success with it on our own, but we're still holding on to that dream a little bit. Like, I think so we can see a lot of ourselves in a character like that, so it's very enduring.
Yeah, that's one of the things I want to explore with Toonman, is the concept of artists and the animators, in regards to how their cartoon creations view them. Because a lot of times, when you look at companies like Disney now, or some more bigger animation scenes, some of the cartoons will have less than ideal thoughts about their creators, about how things have gone on. But some of them, when they're Marty's case, they're still rooting for him because he has ideals and he has great ideas, and he's still struggling, but they're rooting for him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like the idea he's picking up the mantle of his grandfather.
Yeah, that was really cool.
Yeah,
I like
a legacy. We see the legacy aspect so much with the heroes,
right,
or the villains themselves at times. We don't often see it from a creator standpoint.
Yeah, you want to make your family proud, and he wants to basically reinvent the character, or make the character bigger than it ever was, because of his grandfather had life is in this, it's featured in this issue, the downfalls and the burnout and all that stuff. So you can easily relate to all that.
Yep.
And I definitely can be and feel like I'm in Marty's head, or his situation in a way. But
exactly.
Yeah.
One of my favorite parts of the story, and without giving away spoilers, but sort of the end where Toonman sort of sees the difference in his cartoon world versus this world when it comes to handling a villain.
Yeah.
I thought that was, not only was it funny, but I was like, oh, that's dark. But I liked it in a good way.
That was good.
It was good.
Yeah, that's kind of the thing about you'll see with Toonman, he's a fish out of water. He has to really learn how to adapt and pull back. it's the same concept being like, well, like Spider-Man, he's not the most powerful superhero compared to like Hulk or Thor, but he still is strong in that he has to pull his punches. You know, and Toonman specifically has to do that because it's not like in a cartoon where like you can shoot someone with a gun or a bomb and they'll be okay, or just be in a puff of smoke. They're gonna die.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. I mean, it'd be like if Superman was to come to our world and punch somebody, he's gonna knock their head
High
clean
five,
off.
kid.
Yeah,
Yeah. That part of it kind of reminds me of like what I thought as an adult watching Home Alone. Like when they, it's very like slapstick and cartoony, but like they're gonna die if you do this stuff to them.
Yeah. Especially the second one.
yeah. My son and I were just talking about that earlier this week because we sat down and we watched Naked Gun 2.5.
Yeah.
Oh,
And he's like, how's that guy still alive? And I was like, well, first of all, that's O.J. Simpson,
yeah.
and he's not alive anymore. But second, it's just a movie, and it's
Yeah.
a slaps. And he's like 15, but he's just it's so unrealistic. I'm like, dude, it's supposed to be.
It's like
Right.
satire. Yeah. It's like scary movies. It's, doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's like the Three Stooges. I mean, like,
Yes.
how many times did
Oh my
Curly
gosh.
get a saw buzzed across his head and still live? You know,
Or a hammer. Or,
yeah, or it's like
Yeah.
slap in the face and not have brain damage.
Yeah.
Or the eye poking.
Yeah.
One of my favorite Three Stooges bits was the one where they're the soldiers who take refuge in they're like Union soldiers that take refuge in the Confederate house, and then they like make a cake, but they use like pillow cushions instead of. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, that's a classic one. Everyone like tries to eat it.
They're trying to eat it. Yeah. He's like, what'd you say the name of this cake was? Southern Comfort. Tastes like Southern Comforter. This is a line. That was like one of my favorite episodes.
God, that's so good. Yeah.
Anyway, so this I know that you're raising funds on Kickstarter, and the Kickstarter is finished, correct?
And we completed with almost 200% of our goal.
That's
Nice. That's awesome. Congratulations
Really
on
cool.
that, by the way.
Like you had, it was like $1,500 of an $800 goal,
Yeah.
roughly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
amazing.
It's like you had like 88 backers or so. Did you get any funding outside of Kickstarter, or did you just decide to use Kickstarter solely for?
Mostly Kickstarter. Well, the thing about the comic is that it was already made. So Kickstarter was mostly to raise funds to print the book and
Yeah.
also raise awareness for Toonman. Because, like, in the past, we tried, like, doing books for Kickstarters for books that weren't completed or, like, whole books that, we didn't have a big audience for, and those never worked out. So with Toonman, we wanted to keep our goals small and focus on slowly, gradually building. Because, like, that's kind of how you succeed in indie comics, is that you got to start small and kind of work your way up for the long goal as opposed to the short-term gain.
Yep. So what? So tell me a little bit about what's the distribution plan look like then to get the printed copies out to the masses?
Well, we're using Comic Springs or Greco Printing. They offer a discount if you use their printing and post on your Kickstarter, and they will do the shipping for you. It just costs a little extra. You just got to provide them the extras. So they'll be getting all the physical rewards out, and I will be personally emailing the digital rewards out.
Okay.
As for like rewards such as the digital sketches, I am collecting all the requests for those so I can give them to my artist, and then I will have them draw it and then email them to the backers who had it. And then the T-shirts, once I have for the people that did those are going to like need to be printed first, but eventually like they're going to be shipped out too.
Yeah, those T-shirts were awesome looking, by the way.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So those T-shirts.
I would like
great.
to get more of those mass produced.
Yeah. So other than the people who backed it on the Kickstarter, if someone who's listening to this that did not have an opportunity to back it on Kickstarter wants to get a copy of the book, where do they get that at?
I'm currently looking to put it on Indie Planet, which right now is like the kind of the main market for indie comics, like in our position. It's kind of a little struggle because they have a long waiting list. But
Okay.
Once it's available on Indie Planet, then they'll be able to like print out their own copy or like order their own copy and get it either digital or printed. So keep an eye out for that when we post when it's published on Indie Planet.
Okay. All right. Excellent. And then do you do like a local convention or regional convention circuit? Are we going to see it down at Planet Comic Con or anything like that?
Actually, yes, I do. I'm part of the Iowa Comic Club, and every year we put on like a mini con, well, twice a year, and I always do a booth there. And like just this last one for the fall, I had issues of Toonman available to sell there.
Oh, cool.
Yep.
Right.
So hopefully by the winter issue, we'll have issue 2 done, so I can be selling them there. Yep. So fingers crossed, guys. If you come out to the mini con, which is in which I believe is like the Stony Creek Lodge and Inn.
Yep.
You will see us NRG Comics there, and we'll have issues of Toonman available.
That's awesome.
Very cool.
Very cool. Awesome. Excellent. I hopefully will be able to make it out to that. When is that? Do you know when that show's at?
I think it's in February, like the last month in February. I have to double check.
Yeah. Okay.
But it's
That's
always at the
cool.
Stony Creek Lodge in Inn.
Yep. All right. I have a question. Do you have a lot of people approach your table and want to show you their pitches, their ideas, that sort of thing?
Not yet, but
Okay.
A few do, but really more it's like the most I've gotten is like people are seeing me doing my own thing with comics, and like the parents will come out and say, "Hey, my son or my daughter wants to do something like this. How they do about it?" And I give them the advice that I can based on my experience.
I still have a trapper keeper full of pitches that were handed to me from like other people
Oh, when you were doing your circuit?
when they wanted, to see if we would like publish their stuff.
Well, that's what's cool about this right now is both of you have published comics.
Yeah, I don't. So yeah, tried.
At least you had that experience, right?
Well,
It was a good experience, and it's not. I wouldn't go back and. I mean, there's things that I would probably have done differently.
Yeah.
you did it.
But
The biggest
I wouldn't go back and be like, oh, no, I'm not going to waste the money and do it. It was a really fun experience. I met a lot of really cool people.
Right.
A lot of people that I'm still friends with today that, I met through that experience.
Sure.
So,
Well, and I think it's so much more important, too, to have just a physical comic book to hold in your hand. There's so many...
Especially now.
There's so many, like, web comics.
yeah,
wanna
I know
say
because,
that-
2007-ish is when we were kind of doing it. And the digital comics were not as prevalent as they are today.
Right.
And that's one thing. In retrospect, I would totally do more digital stuff.
Right.
So we had plans. I still have the original art for a digital comic that we are going to publish.
Sure.
That will probably never see the light of day, which is a shame because it's
Don't
actually
ever
really
say
good.
that. It'll happen.
The thing about digital comics is that
Patreon.
they're good for countries who like don't have those mailing addresses or mailing capabilities
Yeah.
for physical
Yes.
comic out.
Yeah.
So that's one thing that I learned from my crowdfunding experience is that people always want a digital copy of the comic, and that's where web comics I think good. But I agree, there's something just more special about holding a physical comic in your book and like having it added to your collection and saying, "Hey, look at my wall of comics. This is what I got. This is all these artists I follow. This is what I love to read."
It's the same reason I don't read comics on like the Marvel or the DC app. I still buy physical copies of books, much to my wife's dismay.
Oh yeah, but mostly I don't. Honestly, I don't buy single issues much anymore. What I do is like the compodiums or the omnibuses because that's a great way to like get all the classic renditions you want to read.
Yep, I've started going that way with the omnibuses because like at one point I went back into my collection. I was like, oh, okay, so I've got like, as an example, I got Spider-Man 2099 volume. I've got issue 1 and I've got like issue 25, and I was like, oh, I'll fill in all the rest. And then I was like, or I could just buy the entire run in the omnibus and save myself probably a lot of money and time. And so I did that. So I have started doing that. I've only got 2 omnibuses in my collection right now, and that's the Spider-Man 2099 and the X-Men Age of Apocalypse are the only 2 that I have. But I'm starting to do that with more stuff that I don't have a lot of single issues of.
Yeah.
So,
what is a series that you're hoping comes out with an omnibus that hasn't yet?
I'll
give you an example of mine. I really want to read Sleepwalker and Darkhawk, like Marvel's Darkhawk series, because like those are like really great series, and I to this day I'm still waiting for them to come out with those omnibuses.
So I have complete runs of both of those, so I can't. So I wouldn't probably buy them because I would just sit down and I still sit down and read the singles from time to time. And I'm trying to think because there is probably already omnibuses for these. I just haven't picked them up yet. And actually, probably not even Marvel. It'd be more like some DC stuff that I like. I would love the complete run of like Tim Drake's solo Robin series in the 90s.
Well, actually, they just came out with a compodium about that.
Yeah.
So it's available at Mayhem.
So yeah, I want that. I don't have that. I would love. I'm trying to think of what else.
I got one that I want. So one of my favorite. You remember that when DC did Blackest Night and then Brightest Day?
Yep.
One of my favorite on runs from that story arc was Justice League Generation Lost, where they focused on Justice League International. One of the best Justice League runs I ever read. It made me a huge Justice League International fan.
Yep.
And I just really would love for them to come out with an omnibus for that series.
I would. There's actually some like Image ones that I would love to see because there's a lot of those, and I could probably go back and find the back issues and the dollar bins somewhere. But like what were we talking about just this last Wetworks?
Wetworks,
We talked about
yeah.
Wetworks. Give me a full run of that, like in a collected edition, or Backlash had 20 some issues. Stormwatch. Give me an omnibus of Stormwatch, like everything from like the beginning all the way up through Ellis's ending.
I want like a run of Shadowhawk.
Yep.
Yeah, because I want to get one from me and then my brother who grew up in the Image boom, and that was his favorite one. So I'm saying, hey, happy birthday, bro! Look what I got you.
Yeah, that'd be cool. I do have the collections of like the big Spawn collections, but Savage Dragon's one of those. I've never read Savage Dragon. I've got like 3 Savage Dragon comics in my Image box. Never actually read them.
Oh,
I just bought them because the covers were cool.
It's one of my favorite series ever, and Eric Larson is one of my heroes because he's still doing Savage Dragon strong to this day,
and he's still doing all the writing and art himself. Right? He's doing all of it. It's not like, because I think with like Spawn, a lot of times that's handled by other creators. And so that is a really impressive feat that he's continuing to do that all on his own.
Yeah, and like he has full creative control over it. So if he wants to be a more mature title or more family friendly, he just does whatever he wants with it. That's what I admire about
that. Is the one thing about that title that I think was always maybe a miss with me when I was younger is I would go, I'd read a lot of Wizard magazine, and it'd be like, oh, and in this issue, Savage Dragon or someone kicks God in the balls. I don't remember what it was. And I'm like, this just sounds stupid. And so I wouldn't really give it much thought. Or like, this one's got a bunch of fart jokes in it. I'm like, all right, that's fine. And so that's why I never really went back to it, but I would not mind doing that at this point. So there's a lot of collections out there I'd love to get. In fact, I was actually just looking at my list last night in my notes. I was like, oh, these are all of the Image titles that I need to go in, because as a child of the 90s, like, it was always a guilty pleasure of mine, all those shitty Image comics, the style over substance thing, but I love them. Yeah. Just like we'll probably talk about later this month with, I think what we're talking about, Wildcats or something along those lines. Yeah. Wildcats is one. I'd love a full run of that. I mean, that thing ran for like 50 issues.
Well, it's funny is like with Kickstarter, that's allowed some of those artists and creators who had those books in the 90s to revise them and bring them back. And that's what I love about them. And I was actually a child of the 90s, so like I wish I had been born in the 80s at least, so I could have grown up with the Image boom and have all these comic experience that everyone does.
It was a good time. It was a fun time. So I think I was born in 80. So the first comic books I remember, because I got comics as like presents, and it was like milestone editions of like Fantastic Four #1 and Giant Size X-Men and that sort of thing. And then I remember my parents got me, it was like a 4-pack, and it was for Christmas one year, and it was the Death's Head 2 miniseries, where Death's Head 2 is introduced and kills the original Death's Head. And I fell in love with that series and fell in love with that character. And so then when he had his own series that came out shortly after, that ran for like 13 issues or 16 issues, I had to go out and get all of that. But the first comics I remember buying with my own money as a kid, or like my allowance money or whatever it was like, I don't remember the issue number, but it was the Punisher issue where he turns black. And then goes to Chicago and hangs out with Luke Cage for like 3 issues. I do still have those.
That's a collector's.
I've got that whole run. I got a whole Punisher run. And then that was one of the first ones. And then the Amazing Spider-Man 361 with the first full appearance of Carnage was like one of the first Spider-Man comics I ever bought. I did sell that last year. I was like, there's a new movie coming out. I needed some cash. I sold like that 3-issue story for like $300. So
nice.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, I was curious how much you got for it.
And these are like well-read comics. These are not like, CG graded.
Sure.
Comics or anything like that. But so I remember getting in on like when Image was like first becoming a thing. And again, I learned a lot about it through things like Wizard magazine, because I was, I remember buying those, and the second issue of Wizard I ever bought had Wetworks on the cover. And I was like, what is this? I want it. And then I had to wait like 2 years to get it, which that's fine. But I learned a lot about, like Youngblood, Wildcats, Spawn. I remember seeing like all those #1s and being like, and my dad is like, I need 4 copies of this and 4 copies of that. And I'm like, what do you need all these? I was too young to know kind of the investment aspect of it, which is a big driving force at the time. But it didn't really work out well for him, considering now I'm sitting on like 4 copies of Spawn #1 that are probably worth $20 total.
Well, I got a question for you and Alex. What age did you know, like, I want to make a comic?
I think it was like when I was like 10 or like in elementary school. And honestly, this is a fun story, is that when I was that age, you know, the Captain Underpants books had come out, you know, and like you probably have kids and like who read those books, and in the books they have like these little like crudely drawn comics, you know, and I actually thought there was actual kids who drew these, and I thought, hey, if they could draw this and put it in a book that's selling well, I can do this too, you know. So like that's kind of how I said I knew I wanted to create my own comics, you know. I don't think I really got serious in it until I was like I was in high school. It was like I focused more on the writing part of it. But yeah, so Captain Underpants actually was the influence for me deciding I wanted to be in comics.
Yeah, I know. For me, it was the Marvel and DC trading cards is kind of really what introduced me to that world. And I remember me and a couple of buddies, we sat down and started designing like our own characters and doing like bios for them and creating villains for them. And this was probably the 5th or 6th grade, and then there was another couple of guys that they started doing it on there, and we were like, it was like DC versus Marvel. We were like rivals, and then we like would compare characters. And I still remember the first character I ever created was this, and I used to dress up like him too. He was called Death Shadow, and he basically wore like, he had like a top hat on, and then when I dressed up at him, it was like a black top hat, and it was like a blue t-shirt, black sweatpants, and like a purple cape that my grandma had made me for Christmas one year. I didn't wear them. I didn't dress like this in public. And I had my water gun Uzi, was one of Death Shadow's primary weapons. Was the Uzi, and then I also had like imaginary, because I didn't really have them, but Death Shadow had like Wolverine claws, because every fucking character that kids created back then I'm sure had Wolverine claws.
And he's got claws.
Yeah. And so Death Shadow had like Wolverine claws, but only on one hand. He had an Uzi. Oh, and he also carried a sword. I did have the sword, like the ninja sword from the state fair. Nice. So I would dress up like that and run around and fight with my brother, and my brother dressed up as a character called Mystery Man. And that was basically just like green pajamas. He looked like the Riddler. Nice. And so we would dress up like that and run around the house. I did the first comic book thing that I ever wrote and drew was a Death Shadow comic, and it was it wasn't even a full comic. It was one of those where it had like one picture, and then below was like a few paragraphs of story, and then it was like a picture, a few paragraphs of story, and that was the first one I ever wrote. And to show my true lack of originality, his arch enemy in that first issue was a hockey mask wearing killer called Jason.
Different last name though.
No, he didn't have a last name, because I didn't know. 10-year-old me didn't know that Jason had a last name.
Right.
And so that was who he fought in the very first issue. I have no idea what happened to that book. I wish I could find it.
Called up and threatened.
I'm sure it's probably somewhere in my parents' basement in some box. I'll find it at some point.
But scan it. Digital.
But I was not a very good artist either. Like I was just if I don't recall these being stick figures, but if they were stick figures, that wouldn't surprise me.
It was a style.
Yeah, and then most of my drawn like comic book cards or whatever when we were like designing characters, like it was a lot of tracing. Like it was a lot of. This character, for some reason, looks just like Green Lantern. and this
blue.
This guy looks like Cyclops, but his name is Bright Knight. So
it's like the off-brand sodas at Walmart or whatever.
Yeah, like, pretty much.
Mountain Thunder.
It was. Yeah. I was like the Faygo version of Marvel Comics.
But like both of you, when you were doing your first books, like how'd you keep the momentum, the drive to see it all the way through? I mean, were there writer's blocks ever, or just the whole creative process? Like, did you have a deadline for yourself?
I definitely had some like writer's block issues. I think what helped was having an editor like who I'm not working with anymore due to the creative differences, but he did help me like get through my writer's block and really encourage me to write more. That's really what I think is good about having an editor, is that they do encourage you. Like these days though, because my editor is now, my new editor is part-time, I don't have that same drive. But I guess what keeps me going is like writing is that this is what I want to do. This is what my life is, and this is what I want to leave behind when I die. This is like, and like I have big dreams to like turn NRG Comics into like this whole multimedia platform with movies and cartoons and video games and toys. Because like not that I'm in it for the money. I'm just saying like this is still very much storytelling. But if I can make all this into more media that can be spread outwards, just like it has with Invincible recently, then I would love to do that.
Yeah,
so.
absolutely.
That makes sense. Yeah, keeping the momentum can be difficult, especially when if you are a part-timer and you've got other responsibilities, it can be
all that
job, family, it can be a challenge. I know that for us, we just, with the group that I was working with, we just did what we could to hold each other accountable.
Sure.
We'd have meetings every Sunday morning, and this is what we've been working on, this is where we're at. And then we would have certain deadlines we would try to shoot for, and usually it was around maybe some type of show that we wanted to attend, like, okay, so Planet Comic-Con's in 4 months, we want to get this done by then, or we want to get this printed by Wizard World Chicago, whatever it may have been. And so we would try to set deadlines like that. Nice. And then I know I've talked about it before, and just and where we kind of fizzled out is one of our kind of core group members passed away. He was the one who was responsible for illustrating the kind of the issues 2 and beyond of our one of our titles, and so with that, and then one of our other artists was like, I could actually make a lot more money if I just draw pictures and not do full comics. And I'm like, and that's fine. And so it just kind of like fizzled out from there, sadly. But and it's one of those things that I would love to have revisited it or kept it going, but we had it set up to where I wasn't paying an artist to draw something. We were all partners,
right?
And taking it, we would share in the profit, but at the same time we were sharing in the the liability of it, or the debt. Right. And so it was a little bit of a different design. I've thought about going out and hiring, and there were some other books I looked at making where I was like talking to an artist. I had a conversation with one artist, and he was, the price was right. His issue was, he was like, I'm not comfortable drawing sodomy. And I was like, I get it. That's fine. And so that didn't happen.
Gotcha.
It wasn't explicit. It was more implied sodomy than anything else.
Oh, gotcha.
Oh, wow. Oh, boy.
I usually do.
Oh, no.
Coming soon to toy aisles near you.
Yeah, Captain Sodomy.
Captain Sodomy. Well, he's actually still only he's only Sergeant Sodomy.
Oh, okay. He hasn't been promoted yet.
I'm always fascinated about the whole creative aspect. We have a filmmaker on here or a comic creator. It's just because I have ideas myself, but just to stay inspired and to actually put it into action, I always admire people who have actually done it. This
is something else that I was talking to my son about a week ago, because he was hitting me up with, he's like, I had the story idea for a movie, and it's actually not, it's a good idea. And I told him, I was like, the first thing you need to do, and this is what I tell everybody, you have an idea, put it down on paper, type it out, write it out, and then you can flesh it out from there. But that is the hardest part, I think, for anybody, is just getting it onto paper.
Because you can forget it, right?
You can forget it. Yeah. It'll change. Yep. And I think that's what holds a lot of people back. If they're like, oh, I have this great idea I want to write, or I want to do this, write it. You have to write it out. You can't just say I want to be a writer and then not write anything.
Exactly.
And that's the same thing I have to tell myself all the time, where I'm like, I've got like 3 novels I've been working on for fucking years.
Yeah.
And I'll sit down and pound it out for days at a time, and then I'll stop for a year. And then I'll pound it out for days at a time. And I just have to be more committed to and hold myself accountable to be like, I want to do this many pages today. But so many things, and if I figure if I was to dedicate an hour to writing a day, that's only 4% of my day.
Yeah, that's not bad at all. Yeah.
That's not bad. I mean, you put it in like that schema, that's not bad at all.
Right.
And so have to do better about that myself. But that's the biggest advice I could give to anybody is if you want to be a writer, if you've got ideas, jot them down.
Yeah, I've heard like people just they just should write. Don't like I'm a perfectionist, so I want to get it right the first time, but I need to realize.
Same here.
I just need a rough draft at this.
Alex, are you your own biggest critic?
I am my own worst critic, honestly.
Same.
It's like,
I think
want
that's
everything to be like so
common.
perfect, and like I always overthink things, like saying this is not good enough, or this could be better, or this is just like this. It's like it's because I care about my comics so much that I'm my own worst critic. And
I have trouble reading what I've written because I'm like, I hate this. Even though other people read it and they're like, no, it's good. And I'm like, no, I hate this. And they're like, no, it's good. And I'm like, it sucks. And they're like, no, it doesn't. And I'm like, I am my own biggest critic as well. And it is such a hard thing to get over. And I think that's, again, something else I have to work on because I do need to be able to sit down and go back and reread what I've written if I want to make tweaks or changes and kind of approach it differently. So,
well, I think we've got, just under the Field of Geeks umbrella, we either know so many people or have so many people working with us that are doing different creative things. Like Juan's working on a graphic novel. We have Terrell Christie, who's a filmmaker.
Yep.
Isaac, that we met from Scaldstone, has a short film out there. And I can relate to that too. Like when I do like the gaming videos and stuff like that, I hate the way my voice sounds. I think
I don't ever listen to any. I do watch the videos you send, just to make sure they look good. But at the same time, I'm like, oh god, it's so fucking cringy.
Yeah, like I hate it myself, but then other people are like, oh, that was
love yourself.
That was good. Yeah,
I've had to do that for almost 10 years now.
It's funny,
listen to myself.
It's funny you bring up your own voice thing, because like I have always wanted to be a voice actor because I'm a big animation fan and I love like acting and doing characters, and I've always wanted to do voice acting. When you hear yourself talk in a character's voice, you think it sounds just like it.
100%.
When you hear yourself, it's like, no, is my voice range right for this?
Yeah.
But I still want to do it. I just need the training.
Yeah.
It's like,
There is an art to that, and you can learn how to do it.
It's like singing, right? You just gotta
very much so.
Yeah.
Right.
And I'm the same way. I was like, oh, dude, I could totally be a voice actor. It's like I can sound like Peter Parker if I wanted, or I could sound like whatever. But then I'm sure if I was actually and when I'm by myself, I can sound like anybody.
Yeah.
It's stage fright.
But you start in front of people, I'm like,
it's like, man, I'm just not rightly tuned right now.
Yeah. It's like when I'm alone or something, I have like a certain episode or in my head, or something. If I'm a show I like or like a scene, like I'm just like acting out, like talking. I was like, oh God, Lynn, what did you put in this? Oh well, a little tequila Neals, a little vodka. So literally everything in a bottle. And yeah, that's why it's called everything in a bottle.
Yeah, it's like when we did like the drink thing as I was dressed as a werewolf, and you're like, yeah, you can do a voice, and then it came out, I was like, hi everybody, and I was like, why the fuck did I sound like that? That's not what a werewolf should sound like.
I loved it.
Oh, maybe on Sesame Street.
So stupid. It's so stupid. That's just the voice that came out, and I don't know why it came out like that.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah. He had that mask on for like almost an hour because we had to set up and everything.
It was hot.
Trooper. Yeah.
It was hot.
Oh, I dug it, especially when you're like talking about the sodas, like something was $1.50. Like, oh my god. Well, yeah. I mean, when we were filming, I was cracking up. I was like, oh shit, I gotta shut up.
Yeah.
It's tough.
Yeah, it's funny. It's like because like one of the reasons I want to be a voice actor is because when Toonman's made into an animated series or movie, I want to voice him.
Oh yeah, sure.
It's like for me, it's like I feel like I'm Sylvester Stallone. I'm the only one who can play Rocky.
Yeah.
Like, there's only a certain way I want him here to say, all right, I got my purpose again. I just got to figure out how to do it. No. There's a certain way I can only hear the character play.
Yeah.
Right. Absolutely.
And I'm sure that helps when you're writing the character is to give him that type of a voice, because it's so much easier writing a character if they've got a voice than if they do not.
Well,
have
and
a voice.
you look at other comic books that have done it too, like The Boys.
Yeah.
When they wrote that, they envisioned Huey being Simon Pegg.
Right.
So like everything he said sounded like Simon Pegg in their,
or like Samuel L. Jackson as Ultimate Universe Nick Fury.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
or it's like how like Bugs Bunny had like a New York accent. It's like a lot of cartoon characters back then did.
Yeah.
Like, partly because that's where all the filming was done. New York. That's what people knew. So
Yep. Yeah. How many times have you seen Roger Rabbit and Cool World and
Cruel World, not so much. Roger Rabbit, millions of times.
Yeah.
You know, it's
Classic.
like it was one of the influences of Toon Man. Just recently had an anniversary. You know, and so
Yep.
I loved everything about it. You know, it's a huge influence. You know, it's just like what it's funny is like when I was a kid, like the part where like Judge Doom is revealed to be a Toon. Spoiler alert. It was like always like so terrifying because just like how he did like it was like
You thought that was terrifying? How about when you're a kid and you see him dip the shoe in the acid for the first time?
That's
And I was
still
like, that's
tough.
fucked up.
Oh yeah, that was dark movie. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but it was such a. I think we're maybe blessed that they never made a sequel or anything. I know they made an animated short, but
Yeah.
I never saw it. I never saw the
it was in
animated
front
short.
of Honey,
bunch
I
of
Shrunk the
animated
Kids or
shorts.
something.
Did they?
Yeah.
I remember they had the baby one that they would play in front of another movie.
That's it.
Yeah.
I saw the one with the
That's it.
baby that I think
Yeah.
they played.
It was like Baby's Day Out or
Was
something
that played in
like
front of like Batman Returns or something?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think so. Something like that. Yeah, one of those movies for sure. Yeah, yeah.
They had a
Because I
few
remember
shorts.
seeing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had a few shorts. One where like Roger Rabbit is in like a national park, and then one where he's in a hospital.
Yeah.
I think
remember-
I've seen the hospital one.
Yeah, because like that was the one where like he gets the bill and like he like passes out from like, oh my god, it's like so.
Does his eyeballs come out and they make like dollar signs?
Like no, it's like he just like he freaks out because the bill is so high.
Yeah.
You know, it's like
Yeah.
he's like, going like
Yeah, that and maybe Ready Player One. Those have been the movies that have featured the most several ownership properties into one. That's all I could think of.
And and with Roger Rabbit, the only way they would let them have like Mickey Mouse and Bugs Bunny on the same
Yeah,
screen was if they shared the same exact amount of time.
yeah,
So that's why you see like Donald Duck and Daffy doing the piano battle. And,
That's right. They're in the same scene together.
yeah,
yeah.
it's like, it's the
Incredible.
only time in history you ever saw them together.
Yeah,
You know,
crazy.
all those movie.
yeah.
Also, kind of reminds me of like the Chippendale movie they did.
Oh, yeah,
where they have like
yeah.
all these old.
It's
like,
called Magic Mike.
Got the omnibus
man.
to that.
Yeah. Magic Mike graphic novel. I can't wait till that comes out. I'm gonna get it signed by Channing Tatum.
Guys, we got 3 of those movies. Why? I don't-
People like I don't know.
It's a guilty pleasure movie for a lot of
Yeah,
them.
I know. Yeah,
Yeah.
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 Just out of
They
everything.
can't go to an actual, Magic Mike's. So they
It's
gotta-
their Magic Mike is like it's their Michael Bay. It's their Bad Boys.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
So
Give us Jersey Mike's the movie.
Jersey Mike's the movie. Isn't that a sandwich shop? Which I've never eaten at.
I like food.
With Danny DeVito as the lead character.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, for sure. Oh my god.
I do love me some Danny DeVito.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I loved him as a penguin. I don't care what anyone says. I thought that.
Oh, that was
The Penguin?
Great.
Yeah.
That was the first Christmas movie I watched this season. Was Batman Returns.
Yeah, I agree.
Because it is a Christmas movie.
I agree.
Yeah.
And he is such a good penguin. He's
It's
so
grown on me,
creepy.
but as a kid, I was actually disappointed in that movie.
See, and as a kid, I was not
Yeah.
because I knew who Batman was. I did not know who the Penguin was.
Right.
I mean, because that movie came out in what, 91?
yeah.
And so that came out before I was reading Batman comics. It came out before Batman the Animated Series by a number of years. And so
I had
didn't
the
really know
toy,
who the
yeah.
Penguin was. I didn't really know who Catwoman was.
I knew his look, and I saw the Adam West series because that's all I had.
Sure.
Yeah,
because I
British
didn't.
American.
Which I never watched the Adam West series until FX became a channel.
Yeah.
Remember when FX was first a channel
Yeah.
and it was all like
Shows.
combat,
Yep.
Batman, Green Hornet. It was like all those
Yeah.
old kind of like 60s and 70s shows. And
Wonder Woman.
I never watched the Batman series
Yeah.
until then.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that was my introduction because I didn't get to go to the cinema to see the first Batman film. I saw the Adam West show. So it's kind of like both those Batmans were introduced to me, but I had more access to the 66.
Yeah.
And so I kind of knew the characters' looks. And so when Danny DeVito, I don't remember hating the look or anything. I think I didn't like how he's kind of grotesque with his mannerisms. But like I said, it's grown on me. It's a Tim Burton movie.
It's
Yeah.
very Tim Burton.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like if there's like superheroes that Tim Burton can do, it is Batman is one of them. You know, it's like I love Tim Burton. He's like one of my favorite directors, and I wish he had stuck with the rest of the like Batman movies. He planned to have Robin Williams be the Riddler, and that would have been so.
I tried to watch Batman Forever about a week ago, and I made it like I don't know, 20 minutes in, I was like, this is so fucking
See, that
bad.
was a breath
Yeah.
of fresh air to me back then.
Yeah,
Not so
no.
much now.
With Jim Carrey as the Riddler was terrible. Tommy Lee Jones as Two-Face was absolutely
You mean
terrible.
as the Joker, because that's pretty much what
Yeah,
he
we
was.
could, yeah. I wanted us to have the Joker that was originally planned for Tim Burton, like the African American actor who played comes. That
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Oh,
you probably-
it's Two-Face. Yeah.
You
Billy
probably
D.
seen
Williams.
They did like continuation comics with like
Yep.
that, and it was like, how did we not get this?
Yeah.
You got it in
Yeah.
comic form, though. They finally have done that with
Yeah.
Batman 89.
Yep.
And they have another issue now, too.
One other thing too about that Batman movie. Catwoman. I still love Catwoman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I was absolutely in love with Catwoman
I had the
as a
McDonald's
kid.
toys that people
Yeah, that was
were
my
like,
first
so
introduction to
frowned upon.
Catwoman.
Yeah.
Well, that and a lot of Batman characters, because I was young at the time, the animated series were my introduction to a lot of characters.
Sure.
Like,
Right.
especially like Mr. Freeze and Mad Hatter, which like those incarnations of the characters from those series are my favorite.
Yeah.
You know? Especially the Mad Hatter, because I don't like how they portray him as like a sexual predator in most cases, like too obsessed with Alice in Wonderland that that's his thing.
Yeah.
And what I love about the animated series one is that his thing was basically focused on what made him dangerous, was his mind control abilities. It was always had to do with his mind control abilities. It almost never had to do with Alice in Wonderland, because that's what made him dangerous. He's the one Batman villain who mastered mind control.
Yep.
Yep.
One of my favorite episodes of that I was thinking about. I was like, I need to go back and watch this one. It's the one with that kind of 1950s pulp character, the Ghost.
The Gray Ghost?
The Gray
This
Ghost.
was voiced by Adam West.
Yes. I really loved that episode.
That's the problem. Like that show was doing it so much better than the movies at that point. You know, like when we were getting
Yeah.
Two-Face and then eventually Mr. Freeze, you're like, oh yes, Heart of Ice.
Yeah.
What they did in the animated series, and then it's like, wow, just shortcomings. Like,
Yeah.
just did you guys watch your own show? Like,
Yeah.
Warner Brothers, hello. Just mimic this.
Well,
but-
I think
Burton in charge
Schumacher.
of not Tim Burton. Put Bruce Timm in charge of DC. Like
Yeah.
the whole shebang. He gets the characters better than everyone. I mean, look at like Static Shock. Look at Superman. Look at Justice League and all those characters.
Yeah.
He understood them. He understand what made them great. That's why those shows are timeless. He made Wonder Woman relevant again. You know
Yeah.
how hard it is to write Wonder Woman. It's seriously hard. Like I don't feel like anyone can really do Wonder Woman justice. And if we had a Wonder Woman series by Bruce Timm, I guarantee you that her rogues gallery would stand out.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, they would have come up with interesting concepts.
So you said, now going to Tim Burton, what other DC or Marvel character would you like to have seen Tim Burton direct?
Let's see.
Because we almost got the Superman,
Yep.
Yes.
though I don't know if that
documentary.
would have been good.
I think a perfect one for him to do, Doom Patrol.
That would be
Oh,
good.
yeah, that would have been.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because essentially, like, Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Cheerleader meets Beetlejuice. You know, it's like, and I just like, I love Doom Patrol. Like, they're like one of the most obscure characters of all time, but that's
Yeah.
what makes them. Well, it's like, they'd be perfect for Tim Burton.
Yeah.
Yeah, they'd be good for Tim Burton. I don't know if maybe I was trying to think of
Sandman.
Sandman could be
Maybe.
good.
Yeah.
The look anyway.
Ooh,
you'd get that.
Ragman.
Don't get me. Ragman's one of my. That's,
See, this is what I love. So, Alex, I don't know if you know, but we started a spin-off show, Number One Comics, and Jonah and Bill host it and do a great job. And I love comics, but I never really stuck with them enough to know everything and all these other characters. But I've been introduced to all
we
these new
just talked about
characters.
Ragman in this episode that
and
launched
Sleepwalker,
on Wednesday.
When you said Sleepwalker earlier,
Yep.
I was like, I know that guy. I mean, from one issue, I do.
Right.
Yeah, we only review first issues of comic books.
Nice.
Is
Yes.
what we do. Is what's what our focus is on.
Yes.
So, and we did talk about Ragman in the episode that just dropped because I'm a big Ragman fan, and I think Ragman could do Burton well because especially if you take Burton's Gotham,
Yeah.
it's already
exactly, yeah.
very dark and gritty and and it very surreal, and I think Ragman would fit well in that type of
Sure.
atmosphere.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be necessarily a super hero movie he does. I mean, like, one other thing a superhero he could do is Dead Man. You know, but I think like if he did like House of Mystery or House of like all those like anthology series, like there was horror comics with like had like Cain and Abel, that'd be interesting.
Dude, give me a Tim Burton Constantine film.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I think that'd
Maybe
be
a
pretty sweet.
Tim Burton Spectre film.
Yeah.
Well, and putting you on the spot, Alex, if you could think of any new creative types, or I guess old creative types, let's say Toonman, the movie, gets greenlit, and you get to choose, let's say, who would be the people, some of the jobs you would assign?
Well, like I said, I would voice the character, and I probably would like write the script. I guess the director. Who would I put as the director? Probably one of like one of Disney's golden age. I mean, not golden age, but like Bronze Age, like Renaissance directors. You know, who directed one of the movies from there. I feel they could do it. Or I'm terrible with names right now, but I guess
it's all good. I put you on the spot. Sorry,
but I definitely don't want. But I'm definitely going to use like 2D actors for all the cartoons. I mean, 2D designers for the cartoons. I'm not going to do like that thing where like the cartoons are like 3D eyes, because like Toonman is very 2D.
Yeah. Sure.
You know, it's like Roger Rabbit.
Yep.
Let's see. I think I some cast I would choose like for members, like Annie would be played by Kat from the actress from Two Broke Girls.
Oh, I like that. That's cool.
I think despite the Ant-Man movies, I do like who portrays Hank Pym. I think he would be a good Marty Mason.
I'm trying to think who. Are you talking about Michael Douglas?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Because he kind of looks like Marty Mason these days.
Yeah. I can see that.
See. Voice actors, if there were any, I would want. I'm a huge Grey Griffin or Grey Delisle fan. Like, she voiced Daphne and like Azula. Like, I would choose her for something like an animated character.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, I think if we're talking like music, I think I would have probably Danny Elfman do like the soundtrack, but I would have it be like Guardians of the Galaxy, where we're using like all these classic songs from the past decades to do it, like especially Michael Jackson, you know, because I love Michael Jackson. I feel like, especially like if I had the song Black and White in there, I feel that would tune Toonman a lot.
Oh yeah, that's really cool.
Doesn't matter if you're black or white.
I thought he was here for a second.
I closed my eyes.
Yeah, like what were you saying about director? Would you consider Brad Bird?
Probably,
because he did one live action, I think, for sure. Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol. Is that and of course Incredibles 1 and 2. But yeah, that's one I could think of. But
yeah, I think if I had to go with the director, I think I'd probably go with like the original director for the first 2 Guardians of the Galaxy films.
Oh sure,
because like Gunn. Gunn, because like he did a great job of balancing comedy and action.
Yeah,
you know, in an age where before like Marvel focused too much on the comedy part.
Yeah,
like, he did a good job on that.
Yeah, Taika Waititi was too much comedy.
Yeah, got ahead of himself. He had a good first movie, I'd say, but obviously it had some shortcomings to me, because I thought there was moments we needed to feel the weight of what happened, and all of a sudden there's a joke.
And I think Gunn was better at balancing that.
Yes, yes, for sure.
With the comic book itself, I know you're talking, you'd love to see kind of a movie in this sort of the style of like a Roger Rabbit, where it's mixing the animation and the live action. What about, and you've talked about with your company kind of like doing other multimedia type things, board games, deck building games.
Oh yeah,
anything like that? Tell me a little bit about.
Well, I definitely would want to do like some board games or like role playing games like Toonman, because those are like really big these days, and like really those can help. I thought about, for one thing, doing for Kickstarter like trading cards featuring like Toonman characters or characters from the NRG verse. Let's see. One thing I want to do, like eventually, like say what you want about these things, but I do want to do like pop figures of Toonman. You know, just because like I feel like those would be cool. And like one thing I thought about is like obviously a video game, you know, it would have to be way down the line. It would have to be done really well too. You know, I think there's only a certain type of creator who could do a Toonman video game. I feel like a good example would be like the Deadpool game that came out a couple of years ago, which I want to sequel to desperately. That was so fun. And like also like maybe some like Toonman plushies or action figures, you know, like. But I don't want it to be like action figures like they're only for display. I want them to like actually kids to actually play with them. Yeah. Because I feel like if you're gonna have like action figures, like I don't like it that they're kept in a case just for like storage purposes. I feel like if you're gonna have these like things, you should play with them.
Sorry, McFarlane, you're out. You ain't making these toys. Yeah, because no one can play with your shit.
Snap.
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh, man.
Unless like McFarlane decides to do a team up statue with Spawn and Toonman.
Yeah.
That'd be cool. Oh, those two together? That'd be
I know with the DC toys that are coming out, I'm still buying like the Spin Master stuff versus the McFarlane stuff, because you can play with the Spin Master stuff. Like the figures are just better in my opinion.
Yeah.
Not as detailed, but
yeah.
Now, this is kind of a deep cut, but Have you ever played? I think it was a Genesis game called Comics Zone.
Yes. Yeah, I have played
loved
that.
Where
Yeah.
like you move between the panels and
Yep.
stuff like that.
That I think would be cool concept for like a Toonman because of the whole.
yeah.
Actually,
Setting.
you say that because like one of the recent influence for Toonman is Cuphead.
Okay.
So I feel like if I were to do a Toonman video game, I think I wouldn't want to do like a open world game. I think I would want to do like a 2D scroller, like
Yeah.
something like akin to like the video games of like Super Nintendo with DuckTales and like the Page Master and all those games that were made in the movies. They're just side scrollers, but still be challenging, but also still have a story to them. So like Shovelhead or Cuphead, you know, those kind of things. I think that'd be awesome.
Nemo's Dreamland.
Yes.
I used to love Little Nemo, dude. I played that game all the time.
Yeah.
You throw a bubble gum into things' mouths, and then you could ride around on them. And
Yeah. Some of my favorite video games growing up were all based on Looney Tunes or like.
Oh yeah, dude! The first Genesis game, other than Altered Beasts, what came with it, the first Genesis game I got was the
Ah,
Tasmanian Devil game.
So
And
awesome.
that game was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was like the PlayStation 2 game Taz and Bugs and Taz like time travelers.
Yeah.
It's like where they traveled to all these like famous places. One of them was Transylvania, and they fought like Count Blood Count. It was like, "Now I will crush you." That was so fun. God, I miss that when when the video game companies did like games based on classic cartoon characters.
Yes, we don't see as much of that, but we don't really have a lot of classic cartoon characters, in my opinion, these days as we did in decades past.
Well, and I have more fun with the games where you can tell the development team actually had fun making it. There's a game I'm playing right now. It's called Cult of the Lamb.
Oh,
And
yeah, I've heard of
it's
it.
like it's a pretty indie game, like by Devolver, I think it is. But I've had more fun playing that than I have any of like the AAA titles that I spent $70 for.
Yeah.
So I think that's what really intrigues me about your comic as well, is because I can tell like you guys have fun making it.
Oh yeah, we've
And
had so much fun.
That's, I think, something that's missing a lot from media in general today. Like you look at Marvel and it's just they're trying to make a buck.
Yeah, the nice thing with what you're doing with your own property, and this is where I think where I do find appreciation in those old 90s Image titles, as bad as some of them are, is it is their people's passion project. And it is something that you care wholeheartedly about, because you're not just marketing a character to the masses. You're telling a story. You're using a character that you love. It's not like you have to. Oh, and now Wolverine has to team up with Deadpool in the comic books because we just had this $1 billion movie that they did that in. You talk to so many professional comic book writers, especially the more jaded ones, where like we're not even storytellers, we're just marketing people. Like that's all we're doing. We're just marketers.
Yeah.
And it's a shame that it's become, or maybe it's always been that, but it's sort of a shame that that's the take on it, because the stories are a lot less interesting. You take a Walking Dead as an example, where no character was particularly safe. And I think that that's something that you don't have in mainstream comics today. And that's something that with a Toonman you could totally play around with, the concept of that. And I think that just makes the storytelling that much more exciting.
Yeah.
It is something I do definitely plan to play with. And on that note, when it comes to like comic books these days and a lot of media, I feel the problem is that everyone is trying to make a buck. They're like focusing on quantity as opposed to quality, and like that's something I want to do different with NRG Comics, because like that's what I believe in firm of all is quality, because that's how you get the quantity. If you have something good, people are going to pay money for it, and they're going to want more. And if you keep giving them that good quality, that they'll keep following it. I feel like that's why a lot of the 90s like animated movies or TV shows and comic books were so good, and people want more of them, because they focus on quality. That's the key. And there's living proof of that. Like Hollywood is like losing millions of dollars, but the movies that are actually making money, they have a low budget. They're just making good stories. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, like take for example, like the new horror movie Smile. I mean, that had such a low budget, but it was so well done that they were not only able to make all that money back and more, they were able to do a sequel.
Yeah. Yep.
I think that's what like studios like Blumhouse are doing really well is they have a shoestring budget, but they make this amazing movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like that's what I want to do. It's like I want all this multimedia platform for Toonman and all my comics, but I only want to do it if it's good. Someone gives me a script or like give me an idea saying, I'm not going to do this unless you guarantee it's going to be focused on storytelling and actual quality first.
Right.
Because that's how you make the money. It's like quality over quantity. That's going to be like NRG's motto.
Yeah. No, that's good. I like it. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So as we start to wind things down or wrap up, what have we not covered, Alex, that you really want people to know about Toonman, about your company, about the comic? What do you want people to take away from all this?
Well, the basic thing they should know about NRG Comics is that our branding is fun for all ages, but with dark undertones. And again, I like to compare this to the Bruce Timm animated series because that's kind of like what biggest influence are. So you see that our comics are going to be like for all ages, give or take. But like, so they're going to be most relatable, but they're also going to have like some dark, serious storytelling undertones to it, as you've seen in Toonman. We're currently working on issue 2 of Toonman. It's almost out. It's almost completed. Then we're going to post it to our Patreon, and then we're going to do a Kickstarter for that to raise funds with it. Issue 3, I'm going to start working on the script like this weekend. You can find us on DeviantArt, Patreon, Twitter, Instagram, and now recently Blue Sky and Facebook.
Okay, cool.
Yep. Nice. Very cool.
Excellent. So yeah, be sure to check out Alex's work. Check out Toonman. We've had a chance to read the first issue. We might even do an episode on the first issue on our podcast.
I love it.
Because I had a lot of fun with it, and it's definitely unique. I mean, I read a lot of comics, old, new, and this stands out among all of them. And I mean that as a compliment. It stands out among everything else that you're probably going to pick up and read in this day and age.
Yeah.
So very, very, very cool stuff, Alex. Congratulations, and I hope you find really good success with this concept. And I'm looking forward to one day seeing a Toonman movie.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too. And thank you again so much for having me, guys. I'd love to come back again.
My pleasure.
Anytime.
Yeah, we'll definitely have you back when issue 2 is ready to hit. Maybe as the Kickstarter's live, we have you back on and talk a little bit about that second Kickstarter. So
sounds good.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
So,
I love that.
thanks. Well, and again, thanks everyone for joining us. Be sure to check out all of the Field of Geeks shows, the Field of Geeks, the #1 comics podcast. Find us on wherever you get your podcasts. Find us on social media, Facebook at Field of Geeks or at the #1 comics podcast. With that said, I'm Jonah.
I'm Bill.
I'm Josh.
I'm Alex.
See you guys.
Thank you.
Take care.